All right, everyone, we're live from Chicago. We're at America's Beauty Show. We're here with Sofie Pok. Sofie Pok. I really know her as Stay Gold. She's an incredible female barber, incredible barber in general. It doesn't matter female or male. And she's here representing Pivot Point. We're here for this number 6 in our series of professionals who practice. And today, obviously, we're focused on men's grooming, men's cutting. This is a new Pivot Point mannequin we're introducing you guys to called Cameron. And Cameron's got this incredible natural afro texture, so perfect for really practicing these fading techniques. Well, enough about me. Let's get into Sophie's incredible fade technique. Sophie, tell us what you have going on.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. So we have this really cool mannequin that Pivot Point just released. It's really great for fading because we have this kind of really nice natural texture. I'm super excited to kind of show you guys how this works. I will be using my favorite tools, Babyliss. We just launched this recently. This is the new 870 cordless. So what I like to focus on when I'm doing my fades is understanding my guidelines. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to look and see what kind of fade we're going to be doing first. For this one, we're going to probably be doing like a mid fade. So I'll start with my baseline first. So I will grab my trimmers, and I'm going to make my first guide. I'm going to start from the bottom. And when I get to the top of each section, I almost kind of flare out a little bit, just like that, kind of like a C-scoop motion.
If you're watching out there, guys, and you have any questions for Sophie, we'd love to hear them. We know that, doing great fades is a challenge and takes a lot of practice, and Sophie's a master. So we'd love to hear your questions for Sophie anytime. Just shout them out here, and I'll be happy to ask her.
So now I'm working right behind the ears.
But notice you change direction right over the top of the ear, and you kind of use the edge of the clipper a little bit more?
Yes. So what that does is it helps you really kind of maneuver, especially right in the tighter areas. If I could fold these ears down, it would be a little bit easier, but I'm just kind of going and trying to keep that guideline as consistent as possible. So once we have that in, I'm going to start with my next guide.
All right, so again, that was like a Babyliss FX trimmer. Does that
Rose Gold FX.
And you use that because it cuts a bit shorter and tighter?
Yes, that'll take it right down to the skin without using an electric shaver. That'll go a little bit tighter than your clippers will.
And now this is also a Babyliss?
Yes.
Babyliss?
This one just launched. We had an early release last weekend at CT Barber Expo. We will have more in August, I believe. That'll be the next release date for this tool.
And this has kind of a lever adjustment?
Oh, yeah. This is really great.
Talk to us about that.
So most people have always been a little bit more familiar with a free floating lever, so you wouldn't have these notches. It just kind of floats in between. What I find really nice is having these notches available right in here. It almost kind of locks into place just slightly, and you have about 5 of those. So it kind of helps as you're fading. You have an indicator that tells you, okay, you're at step 1. So that also helps a lot with like keeping your blends really consistent all the way through the cut. So that's a really nice feature, and you could be at a level 1 or at a level 10 as far as skill, and this has always been very helpful for most people.
That's awesome. That helps a lot. All right, so audience is growing a lot. Thanks for joining us, guys. We're here in Chicago. We're with Sofie Pok, and also known as Stay Gold on Instagram. She's an incredible barber who's been kind of sharing her education over the past couple of years. This year, she worked with Pivot Point on the men's curriculum, which is super exciting, and we want to hear about that. We're also debuting Pivot Point's new Cameron mannequin head, which, if you can see, this is a really authentic, amazing texture for practicing fading, working on ethnic African-American texture or kinky curly hair. And Sophie's going to be taking us through some of her signature fading techniques. If you have any questions, please shout them out, and I'll be happy to ask her.
So just to catch you up, we started with this trimmer line, and we kind of shaved out all the bottom, right? And then when I start this technique here, this is something that I've used for the last couple years that I didn't really fully understand in the beginning, because one of the things that makes it really hard with skin fades is if we don't know where things begin and end. sometimes you'll be chasing those lines and then you'll just go higher and higher and higher and higher, right? So this little technique that I'm doing now kind of helps me keep it more kind of organized, and it makes it a lot easier for me not to chase that line higher. So what I did first is I start open, which is the longest length with my clipper, and I made this guide right here. And you see at the top of every section, I kind of scoop that out. So you kind of see that little ledge right there. And that's my indicator of knowing don't go beyond that point. So now from this point forward, I'm just going to be working right underneath that and blending it right back down to where I first started. So I'm going to go into my second notch, and I'm going to be working right below that.
Super interesting, Sophie. Maybe you've heard this before, like those like me who were maybe trained more like a hairdresser, even with clippers and scissor over comb, we were always kind of afraid to kind of make that like weight line and keep pushing the weight line up. And then we see this revolution with barbers and fading, where you're doing kind of the opposite, like, and you put the line in and you push it up, you put the line in and you push it up. Can you talk a little bit about like what the benefit? I mean, I know right away, like I can never get it that tight using my technique of working in reverse. Like I would do maybe a 4 and then a 3 and then a 2 and then go to the shortest one.
Oh,
where
definitely.
you go right into the shortest one.
Well, prior to this, I had already debulked this down, and that's what you always want to make sure that you do, because if you don't remove all the weight so that you can, because pretty much you want to see a clear pathway so the hair's not hanging over. So I had already taken this down with like a number 2 earlier, just to make sure I had a better path. But also another thing you have to understand is your pressure that you're applying, because that's what's also going to make those lines either difficult or easy to take out. For me, I'm pretty light-handed.
It's like a real flick of the fingers,
it's pretty much
right?
just like a light touch to where it's grazing over the skin. I'm not putting pressure.
Right, you're not just like sticking the clipper on the head and going up.
Exactly, because when you're putting a lot of pressure, you're going to create new guides. You know what I'm saying? So.
And that's like where that rocking motion, is it with your fingers or your wrist?
I mean, I guess it just depends on what part of the head maybe.
Yeah, your
But
finger,
it's like, you know, I'm used to using 2 hands just out of habit. So that I have something to always balance me back down. Because if not, and you're just coming like this, sometimes we're not really aware, and you're changing directions as you're fading, and that's going to create a lot of choppiness. So for me, just out of habit, I have a second hand where everything comes down to the same point to make sure everything is always leveled out.
Awesome. All right, let's see that evolution of the fade here. And for everyone that's asking, these are Babyliss clippers. Some people also say Babyliss. And these are the new rose gold edition.
The gold FX.
Oh, this is the gold FX. There's also a rose gold pair. Are you going to show us those too?
Yes, I'll show you that right
So
now.
there's rose gold and
So we got 2 colorways. This one is launched first. This one will come a little bit later, but you'll have 2 options. Great coating blades, so these don't get as hot. That's a really special feature, because if you're working on it all day and all, you know, you're not going to worry about this getting really hot against the skin. So that's kind of a new feature.
If you're doing a lot of clippering, that
Oh,
gets hot.
totally. Yeah, and if you really have only one, if you have one clipper, this is the one right here.
Right on. And if people are interested, where would they find one of those? Lots of people are asking where they could buy one.
Tough one. It should be released to Salon Centric.
Cool. So it's
Stores.
in kind of pre-release now.
Yeah, right now it's just in the pre-release form, but you should be able to find them at hair shows after August, and they should be in stores, hopefully around that time.
All right, cool. So now let's get back to this taper adjustment. So right now you're in a very open position, and then each time you're closing it down a little bit more
Yes.
as you go up.
Yes. So I started off with my open here, and then I'm closing as I move back down. But I'm also using something called corner blending, which is I'm using only either this side of the teeth or this side of the teeth to almost like notching in. And it's the same thing as if you would be using scissors to go back in and
It's a
texturize.
small piece of the
Exactly.
blade.
It would be the same exact effect, but I'm going in with a corner of a clipper instead.
So talk to us a little bit about battery operated versus corded. I know, there's been a few questions. How's the battery? How is it? Like I was saying to you earlier, when I started, I've been hairdressing now for almost 30 years. There really weren't any cordless tools, and then when they first came out, they didn't have the power, but that's changed a lot, right?
Definitely. With Babyliss, the great thing is we're a technology company, so everything is really updated. We have a whole barbering team that gives information. We test things out. We know, okay, we should move the power button here. What kind of battery? What kind of blades do we need? And the best part is we have lithium ions batteries in this. So what that means is if you accidentally overcharge this overnight and you forgot to unplug it, it has a chip inside that allows it to turn off so it doesn't overkill your battery after charging so much. Another great feature is that our tools won't slow down as you're cutting because of battery. So that's another plus thing. Because the old
that's what
clippers,
used to happen.
Yes, you take
in
it
the
off,
old days.
and when it would slow down, you could hear it go.
You could feel it. You'll be cutting.
And when that happens, people don't understand is the RPMs in the clipper itself. Right. If this slows down, and it's going usually at this speed, and then it slows down.
Cut's totally different.
You're going to be pulling hair. You're going to be tugging hair. And this is something I learned probably maybe 2 years ago because I didn't know. Because I thought, when I'm cutting in there and then it pulls those little hairs and then you get those little red blood spots, I thought I was applying too much pressure. And I was like, okay, I didn't really understand why. But I found out it's because the RPMs were moving too slow for me. I was moving too fast for the clipper. So
obviously in all hairdressing tools are important, but in barbering, the tools are super important. That clipper is like an extension of your hand.
Exactly.
Again, for those of you that are just joining us, we're here in Chicago. We're at America's Beauty Show, and we're here with Sofie Pok, and she's going to be doing a class all day here tomorrow on behalf of Pivot Point. She's worked with Pivot Point over the past year to work on a men's curriculum to add to the different curriculums that they offer for schools and barbering programs. We're introducing you to Cameron, who is the new male mannequin from Pivot Point. You can see it's got this incredible natural afro texture, so perfect for learning, teaching, and practicing. And that's what this series is all about. It's about professionals who practice. So we're in our 6th episode. I've done a few, and we've brought in other amazing artists like Ruth A. Voss and Ruth Roach, and now we're here with Sophie, also known as Stay Gold, and she's showing us how she practices. All right, so you put on a guard. Tell us why.
So our next step after my clipper work was the half guard. So I did the half guard right in this area. That was my next step. And at the same time, I'm remembering to see scoop out, and especially with right here. This is all going to be free-handed because I want to keep this shape, right? So right now, I just did the half just a bit ago, and I'm going to do the exact same steps that I did earlier in this area. I'm going to start with open, and especially with this part, you want to make sure it stays squared. So I usually look from the front a lot to make sure that my haircut is balanced. So I'll double check all the time to make sure that is. And this is where my pressure gets even lighter because now I'm just trying to create that shape.
So just carve it on the surface, not pressure.
Yes,
pressing.
very, very light pressure.
And, as we all know, it's tricky to work on a mannequin. So what is making this mannequin better to fade? It already looks better than any time I've seen a mannequin faded.
I agree. It's just the quality of the hair is much more updated, and you can tell already.
So you can see there's a good density there.
It looks a little bit more dense, exactly. Because the old doll heads that I remember used to cutting on, you would run maybe a 2 and it already looked like it was bald because of the way that it was created.
Absolutely.
So these are really special doll heads to use if you're trying to practice any kind of fading or tapering.
So give us a little bit of your back history. For those of you guys that don't know, Sophie was interviewed recently for the Hairbrained Conversations, which is our weekly podcast, and Gordon Miller just said right now it's close to our #1 podcast. So that means people are interested in your story. So tell us a little bit about your background. How long have you been barbering? Where did you grow up? Where are you from? Let's hear about Sophie.
So I started off in Orange County. I started off as a stylist. And it's funny because I actually learned from a Pivot Point education back when I started. So to be able to kind of go a full circle and help with creating a barbering program was kind of really a special moment for me. But I know what it's like because when I first transitioned from cosmetology into barbering, I was overly intimidated by everything that we had to learn. Every single step that I had learned in cosmetology school was completely different. I had to relearn everything from scratch. But the thing is, it's like if you open yourself up to just being able to absorb whatever you can as you work in shops, go to these shows and network and see the way people do it, the thing is there's no really mistake on how you do it because there's so many techniques available that you can pick up and find something that works a little bit better for you. And so it's been now for me 9 years. I'm going into my 9th year. The first year I did salon work, and then the next 8 years was just mainly just going towards just trying to do
And
barbering.
what steered you or stirred you to really want to focus on men's work, like, or barbering? I guess it's not just men's work; it's short hair.
Yeah.
But like, what made you focus on that? Did you really not like the blowouts and the color and all that kind of stuff?
That to
or-
me is still foreign.
Yeah.
Anybody that does color, I applaud you because it's
me
very
too.
difficult.
Yeah,
But with barbering, I think even in beauty school, I'd always drifted more towards short hair. I think there was just something so challenging about it. Like, just being able to do a fade, I thought was like one of the most hardest things, but something about it kept me coming back to where I wanted to understand it. I wanted to learn. I wanted to, you know, figure out a way to do it. And I think that's just, it was a feeling for me, to be honest, you know?
It's visual and technical,
Yeah.
and it never gets old. And
It's
just because you did
fast-paced.
one right doesn't mean you'll do the next
Right.
one. It's like,
You're dealing with a lot because as much as I'm telling you to do this on here, you're going to get a client that has a way different head shape, still a
pack
different
of hot
texture.
dogs right here on the back of their head.
You can't forget the hot dog packs, right?
Yeah.
Those are hard. The head dents, like all sorts of stuff are going to be kind of like obstacles depending on the client. So it's a forever changing every day to day. So you're not going to get the same haircut twice in a day.
All right, awesome. If you guys are just tuning in, we're here with Sofie Pok. I keep getting it wrong, so I want to say Pok. It's P-O-K,
Pok or
but
Pok?
Pok. Sofie Pok. And she's really known to stay gold all over social media. She's got hundreds of thousands of followers because not only is she a brilliant barber, but she really puts herself into her social media. If you look through the posts, I noticed you make a lot of statements. You don't just say like little things, you go pretty deep with it. And I think obviously in today's day and age, being real like that makes a difference. So congratulations to you for that. And Sophie's sharing with us some fading techniques on the new pivot point mannequin known as the Cameron. Lots of people have been asking. This is available at pivotpointshop.com, as well as all the tripod and all the incredible pivot point mannequins. We've been doing this series to show that even when you're a seasoned professional, you need to keep practicing. And I was just saying myself that over this past couple of months of doing it, I've gotten so much more reinvigorated because of having to practice to prepare to do these lessons for you guys. So I think the same would happen for you. So let's get back into this fade. Give us that technical breakdown again. Spare no expense.
So now we've kind of connected the skin to the half to the one, which brings me to my 1.5 guard. So now I'm going to continue on in this section right here. You can kind of see the shadows. And this is where using mirrors are going to really, really help you out because we don't always see all the shadows, all the line work just from looking at it with our eyes. So this is why when you go to barbershops, they're usually facing the side that they're working on towards the mirror because those are going to act as like your second pair of eyes. The same way that you would shoot this area with a camera, you'll be able to see all those flaws. And that comes from time. You're not going to always see certain things when you start, but over time, just looking for those things, you're going to help train your eyes to become better. And for me, shooting with cameras have helped my eyes develop a lot because year to year, I go back and see old photos and I'm like, oh, dang, I missed a spot, you know? And using a camera so much, like, you train to kind of figure out what you're looking at, and it helps you really be able to see those shadows. So now when I see haircuts, I see shades. I look at shades. So, for example, if there was a dip right here and that area was a little bit darker, I look at things as a shade, like neighboring shades. So if this is dark and then this is light and this is light, what I try to do is I try to match that shade to the neighboring colors, and that's going to help me create like a smooth transition. Because I think the goal for me when I do haircuts is like I want everything to look like they don't have any flaws in their head, in their scalps. I try to create a consistency of a blend so that it looks like, oh wait, where did that dent go? Where did this go? And this is going to really help you be able to see these little things, and it'll apply to any part of the head. And you know, we're just trying to help them cover any kind of flaws or little problem areas that they might have.
So a couple shout outs from some of our friends. Mari Jones is loving your work. Mark Anthony says you're always on point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Letitia Lee, she just loves you, basically.
Thank you.
Oh my God, she loves you.
Thank you so much.
There was a question, our buddy Sid Sotan, barber from the UK. Have you guys ever met?
I believe I've met him before, yes.
Sid's awesome. He's
Yes.
got a barber place in the UK, and he's been doing a lot of education. We started out years ago back at Sassoon
Nice.
There was a question from Aretha Cochran about adjusting the blade, like how you open and close it. Is that something that you feel like you have to kind of constantly do throughout the haircut, or how do you determine when you need to do it?
So, every time that I use guards, like I'm sure you guys see me doing this a lot all throughout the cut.
Is in there.
Yeah. So I set my guide and do all the bases, and the more you do it, you're gonna understand where you are. So I'll know, like, okay, if this is the half section, this is the 1 section, and then the 0.5. I go back in between to kind of do the fine tuning, because that's what's really going to create that haircut to be like super sharp. I never go through it one time through and just have everything complete. I'll just set my bases, and then I kind of go back in and kind of feel for it. I cut a lot also by sound. So I'll work in sections and I'll start open always, just because you can always take more off than to take too much off, and now you have a hole, and then you have to readjust the whole blend.
Open means the blade is longer,
yes,
it's
that's
cutting
gonna
less
be your
hair.
longest length.
Every time you click it down, it gets shorter.
It gets tighter and tighter.
So always start open and then see what happens.
And the tighter it goes, the lower I move. And then the higher it goes, the more I open.
Cool.
So that's me just kind of going back in and kind of fine-tuning all the dark spots.
Awesome. Let's maybe start to turn this mannequin around this way, so that we still have that nice background. And this is the universal swivel tripod, which is great for education, because it also has this. You just pull it down and you can spin the head around, but I'm going to turn it all the way around so you guys can watch Sophie start to work in the back here. So let's pick up on that, Sophie. Let's see you do some fade in.
All right. So we'll start again with our trimmer. We're going to start at the base.
So for those of you just joining, we're going to see the whole process again, starting with the trimmer. And like I like how you just called out some numbers. So that's like your 0, then you go to your 5, then you go to your 1, and then you visually go back in between them.
Yes.
So getting the 0 in there.
So now we're balding out that bottom. We're creating that guide. With guidelines, I always want to make sure, if I do a straight guideline, if I do a round guideline, you want to follow that first guideline all the way through, and that's what's going to really help.
So when you say guideline, you mean like where this finishes.
This, exactly.
So that could be actually a lot rounder. It could even be like triangular.
Exactly. It just depends on what type of fade style that you want to do.
Yeah, for a lot of traditional hairdressers, like I said, that's totally foreign, that whole idea. Because you'd come in first and you'd try to do like a 3 and then a 2.
It's a little scary, because going in with the skin.
Get this tight.
Yes.
Yeah, you can never.
Yeah, and if you feel nervous, you can always start with clipper short, and build down to the skin, because I don't want you to just dive in and then just completely get lost. So I always say, like, just start with your clipper and go as tight as possible, and then work out, and then work up, and then when you get more comfortable, bald it out a little bit tighter and tighter every time. So next step is my open position.
And again, that's that gentle rocking motion with the fingertips.
Exactly.
So you're not even pressing on the scalp, are you?
No, I'm letting the tool do the work. I'm pretty much just holding it and guiding the clipper. So now and I just kind of line it up with this area, right? Because we're going to do a half here, 1, and then a 1.5. So I'm kind of lining and following my guide from this side. Typically, I would go all the way around for anyone that is kind of new to this. It's just so you don't get lost.
It's more fluid, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But for me, I've already done this so much that I kind of understand where my guides are. But if you are doing this for the first time or barely getting into it, I suggest you go all the way around, so that way you keep your guides all equal. From there, using my 870, we have 5 taper adjustments. So I was at the first notch, now second notch, and I'm working right below that. I'm working right below that guide I created, right? And I'm blending everything back down. And then 1 more notch. Now work right below that a little bit more.
Just like reversing your way down.
Exactly. And then you'll just watch this kind of guide right here kind of slowly fade out. Because as I'm closing, I'm moving down.
Lower and lower. To meet up with what you did with the FX, the trimmer.
Yes, exactly.
So again, for those of you just joining us, we're here in Chicago. This is number 6 in our series of professionals who practice Sofie Pok. She's one of the most successful barbers in the game right now. Still practicing, using her pivot point mannequin. This is the brand new Cameron, and you'll notice that this has a really authentic texture. So it's a great learning tool and practicing tool to get your fades right. That was going to be my next question for you. You say you started off kind of as a hairdresser and decided to go into barbering.
Yes.
How did you find a mentor? Did you take a class? Did you just experiment? Did you get a whole bunch of mannequins? Did you get a whole bunch of friends that weren't your friends for long? Like, how did you work it out?
At that time, Instagram wasn't that big yet, so I wish I had the tools that everybody has now, because I felt like I would have learned it a lot faster. But back then, we just had a couple of videos on YouTube that I remember watching, and then I would just pretty much practice on my brother, uncles, family members, and then once I started cutting and doing it on like live clients, you definitely learn on the job a lot as well.
And how long before it took you to get confident with fades?
I would say safely a year and a half in, I felt like I was at least understanding the pretty much like the steps for most of the haircuts, yeah. And then from that one and a half year to the 8 mark was just fine tuning and making sure. And even still till today, I'm going into my 9th year, and I still find that there's so much more that you can just still pick up.
You know, if you feel like you've got it all, then you probably suck. That's the honest truth. And that's kind of what this whole series is about. Because any hairdresser I've ever met who thinks that they've got it all and they're great and there's nothing for them to learn, they're probably way past their prime and need to hang it up. Because there's always something new to learn. Every head of hair is different. There's constantly techniques. A lot of what you're doing right now, when I started, we were like told to never do that. Like, oh, you can't put in a line to do a fade.
Yeah.
And now, if you don't do it that way, you'll never get this kind of a fade.
Yeah.
So you have to be open to change.
You got to be open, and you can't let someone tell you you couldn't do something, because the truth is there's a lot of different ways to do everything. There's not one right way. So don't let anyone tell you there's only one way to do anything.
So again, lots of questions, lots of people just joining us, asking us about what type of clipper that is, and if you don't mind just kind of breaking down the name and the general details about what you're working with.
This is the new Babyliss 870. We just launched this back last weekend, actually, at CT Barber Expo. We are relaunching more of these in August. Hopefully you can find them in stores like Salon Centric, and might be able to find these also at hair shows. But right now we are sold out since last weekend.
You only give it to rock stars like you, huh? Hey, let's talk about the brush in your opposite hand. Again, I think that's something that's become very popular in the barbering, fading world. Tell us about this brush. What's the purpose of it, and anything?
So, the purpose of this is just to make sure it's clean. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but when you're in barbering, you get hair splinters that are very painful.
About the gloves.
They're flying everywhere. That's why people wear gloves. And a lot of people ask, oh, why do barbers wear gloves? It's for hair splinters.
Do you wear gloves?
If my hands are dry, I have to wear gloves, because then, for some reason, if my hands are dry or too moist, I get a lot of hair splinters.
Right.
So you have to make sure about that. And having this helps me clean this off ever so often, so it's not all over my hands.
Right. So there's like a rhythm of cleaning, clipping,
and this
cleaning,
also
clipping.
kind of clears the hair, because if I were to use a comb and try to brush this out, you're going to get so much debris from hair. So this is just going to keep everything nice and clean.
Is there a particular one that you recommend? This looks
I like boar brush ones. I don't know what material this one is, but
it seems like boar.
A soft boar would be probably my most favorite type of brush.
Awesome.
But now already you can see from here, like, this mannequin fades really, really well. You can see the transition so much better.
For those of you that have tried or practiced, barbering on mannequins or fading on mannequins, you know how difficult it can be. This is a brand new Cameron mannequin from Pivot Point, where they've really tried to emulate a beautiful kind of Afro natural ethnic texture, and then they've got a really great density on it so that you can actually get that fade happening. And we're here today with Sofie Pok, also known as Stay Gold, and she's sharing all of her technique with us. So any questions that you have, please be sure to share them. Let's continue on with that fade. Lots of love coming in. Everybody loves that clipper. They love this, the hair, and
Oh
this
yeah,
is an
this
amazing,
hair is,
yep.
is really, really, really awesome. So I kind of brushed this out earlier. This would be good for the side view. Let's do it here. So all of this, you can kind of see the weight, and if you look at it from the front, let's freehand shape this. So you see here, this is kind of where I stopped. Now, I had already kind of brushed this out, and this is where I kind of do all my freehand work for these type of styles. So I have everything. You can start with your open, or you can put it to close. I kind of do open at first, kind of gauge where I'm at, and I'm pretty much freehand shaping this. Try to get that nice square box shape. This also works handy for beards, especially for full beards. I do the same thing, a freehand technique.
Do you always work with clippers, or do you do some scissor over the comb and scissor kind of shaping in your fingers?
I do, and we're going to get to that. I'm going to show you a special technique I do with texturizing shears. So, let's see from the front. Yeah.
So obviously very visual, very pressure oriented.
You want to hold their chin. Sometimes they move, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
that would be bad in this case.
yeah.
wouldn't
Oh
it?
yeah, especially in this area. Another thing I do. So now we can see that little weight is kind of
Yeah, it's
faded
fading
out,
in
right?
beautifully. Yep.
So here's a little cool technique that I do for any shadows that I see. I have texture shears right here that are more of like a chunky style. They're not as fine tooth, because what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to be removing as much hair. I'm just trying to lighten certain shades. So just here alone, we'll do a little test spot so you can see this better.
Our buddy Ben Coe says he loves watching you cut. And you know Ben's a really talented hairdresser, so that's a big compliment.
Oh, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Ben. Thank you.
Letitia Lee needs that doll head in her life.
You
Absolutely.
do. I think everybody needs
Yeah.
it. It's really cool. I'm totally not even just saying it just to say it, but this is probably the best fading mannequin that I've ever personally used before.
That's a lot to say,
Yeah.
because these days fades are super important. I don't think they're going away. I think they've always been important, but maybe people neglected it a bit. But now that the men's market has grown so much, and they're not just going to a $5 haircut place.
Oh, yeah.
That, you know, they're willing to go and pay a great, you know, hairdresser, barber, 30, 40, 50, who knows how much money. You know, so we all have to have that skill on par.
Now already you can kind of see that lighten up a lot, right? And I'm just working certain sections that I see are dark.
Some questions coming in about what make are the shears, what brand are they?
These are Mizutani shears.
And is
This
that what
is
you
the
work
yes, this is the Stellite alloy.
And of
the
course,
chunky- the
everything is
chunky
gold
ones.
for you.
Oh yeah.
Tell us what's the
funny.
you know, what's the history of the name Stay Gold? You know, my buddy Julian Perlingero has Stay
Mm-hmm.
Gold tattooed on his knuckles.
That's the same for me.
Yeah, he's got the same
You know
thing.
what? That's kind of how it happened. At the time I'd gotten my knuckles tattooed, it was the time I had just was trying to figure out a name for my Instagram, and so it was kind of like the most freshest like phrase in my head, so I kind of used that. And I think the Stay Gold by itself was already taken, so the 31 comes from my birthday number, so that's why it's Stay
Yeah.
Gold 31.
So for those of you who've been asking, I know we keep saying Stay Gold, but it's Stay Gold 31.
31.
On Instagram. And, you know, if you're not already one of the almost 300,000 people that follow Sophie, you should go head over there right now. And as I mentioned earlier, not only does she post haircuts, but the captions really, you know, they say a lot. You're not just saying, here's my haircut.
Right.
You give your story of your life and everything.
I just think sometimes we just need to be reminded that, you know, I've gone through a lot of similar struggles that a lot of people probably have faced, so I just want to like always make sure like people could feel like that they're not like the only ones going through it, and that it's a very common struggle that a lot of people go through. And I just don't want people to forget, like, you know, we are also human, we make mistakes, and, you know, the best thing that we can do is hear each other's stories and kind of grow from that.
Learning every day.
So again, you know, a lot of this is mathematical to a certain degree. I mean, obviously that won't make it perfect, but you started, you think like 0, 5, 1,
Yep.
1 and
Those
a
are my
half,
main guards,
and
yes.
then there's all that stuff in between, like
Yeah.
the, you know.
Yeah, so now when you look at it, that transition has lightened a lot,
Yeah, that's looking great.
you know? And that's on a doll head, like, it's crazy.
Dusting them off, keep Cameron clean so you can see
Yep.
the difference between the hair
You
and
wanna
the
make sure
skin.
he gives you a tip at the end, right?
Absolutely. It's the least we can do. Now, how do you know what, you know, when it's there? Because obviously with something like fading, you could probably just keep going forever.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
actually a
where your
question that-
technical eye comes in, you know? You can only fix what you can see. And you can't always see everything from the start. This is something that's gonna develop over time.
So really, like, if you were in the shop right now and working behind, do you still do clients on a regular basis in the shop?
I do, yes.
So how long do you allow, how long do you book for?
For certain types of cuts, it depends on the cut. My typical average is probably 45 to an hour for regular cuts.
45 to
And
an
then
hour.
specialty cuts could sometimes take up to an hour and a half.
So
especially if
you're
there's a
not in
beard.
that thing that barbers, it should be fast, 15 minutes, get them in and out. I'm
mean,
assuming that you're charging a little
yeah.
bit more as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for everything. Of
course.
Like, if you want to be that barber that cuts 30, there's completely nothing wrong with that. You know, I think it just depends on the lifestyle and the types of work that we do. So
There's something out there for
yeah,
all of us.
Exactly.
yeah.
for
And there'll be
sure.
clients for everyone too. If you want to do
Exactly. There's more than
$1
enough
haircuts for 3 minutes, you could probably build a clientele.
Totally.
If you
I
want to do
mean,
$1,000
I was
haircuts
in,
for 2 hours, you could build a clientele.
I was really shocked. Once I was in Costa Rica doing a hands-on class, and there was a girl there that does 60 haircuts a day at $4 each. And she was happy as can be, you know?
Yeah,
so that's
she
why.
probably made a good lifestyle for her and her family.
And that's
yeah.
and that's her happy, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to cut 10 people a day. You don't have to do 30. It's just kind of like a personal decision of where you feel comfortable.
Hey, Brandon De Silva, always glad to have you here. Love your support. Shout out from Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon.
Again, guys, if you have any questions for Sophie about her technique or, you know, how she got to where she is, because she's really, you know, killing the game here with barbering, traveling the world, doing education with Babyliss, and also this year, Pivot Point brought you in with a few other barbers to work on the Pivot Point men's curriculum. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that one was really cool. We did that book, I think it was the end of last year. It was 3 barbers, me, Anthony the barber, and another guy, Christopher. And we were able to kind of sit down and really break down everything that we've ever gone through to help create this book for barbering. Because Pivot Points only had cosmetology, so that was really cool to kind of launch a barbering program for that.
And you said you started off with Pivot Point
I
Cosmetology,
did.
so you came
Back
full
in
circle.
2009. Back
Yeah.
in 2009 is when I graduated beauty school. And, you know, it's got some really cool things. I think I have 3 haircuts on there that everybody can learn. I think everybody has like 3 or 4 looks, so that was really cool.
Love coming in from Dylan Whipple. You're so good at your cut. It's so sharp. I hope I can get as good as you someday.
Oh, yeah.
Any tips for Dylan on how to get good?
Just keep practicing. Keep practicing and look for where you can improve. Because sometimes, you know, if we're distracted and we're working, you can aimlessly just be cutting and never growing. So just always make sure, like, when you go into the shop every day, like, there's something new that you can improve on. And so for me, it's the same thing. I'll, you know, especially on the repeat clients, you see what their hair looks like, and you can just try to, like, make that better the next time. And you can see that progression, especially if you take pictures and save it. I study my own haircuts, and then I compare them with other people that I look up to. And I'm like, okay, if this is here, I can understand on that photo, this is where their skin line is, this is where the half, this is where the 1 is at. And I try to mimic those styles, because that's like the best way to kind of learn it, you know, is see the different transitions and doing it yourself over and over again.
Awesome. I remember when I was a young hairdresser, I got some good advice from someone. They said, you know, tear out at magazines at that time. There was nowhere near Instagram. I started in '91. They were like, rip out photos from magazines of work that you like, and then take Polaroids of your own work and throw them into the collage. And until they feel like they belong there, then you haven't gotten your skill down yet, because you know what you like, you've trained your eye, and if your Polaroids start to fit in there, and you're like, hey, you know, I can match this work, then you're starting to get there.
Right.
But until you get there, you gotta, you know, really, really keep practicing. And then once you get there, start all over again.
Yeah.
All right, so now back into that freehand kind of blending above what you did.
So from here, I'm working at the occipital bone. And I'm kind of following this little natural curve that he already naturally has. And I'm just going from here and just kind of shaping that out.
Letitia Lee says, thanks for empowering us female barbers.
Thank you. Of course.
I mean, do you feel that way? Do you feel like I'm a female barber, or are you just like, I'm a barber?
You know, my goal...
Does it matter to
my
you?
My goal was never to be just like, I just wanted to be like highlighted as a female.
Right.
For me personally, it was just like, I just wanted to prove at that time, because, you know, when you first start, people kind of doubt you in your areas. It's just like, oh, like, I mean, it started with clients, like, oh, do you know how to cut hair? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? So my goal was just like, hey, like, I think I can do this just as good as any regular barber. So my main focus was always just to be looked at as a general barber, not to just be like, oh, you're just good for a girl, you know. So
That's
I
why
just try to keep
like,
myself.
I hate saying female
I try to
barber.
elevate myself out of that category.
Sure, as well you should, because doesn't make a difference, male or female.
Right.
But it's just like this point of difference, though, because, you know, you think, okay, you know, there's something special there.
And, you know, it's going to happen. Like, it still happens to me sometimes where people kind of ask me those similar questions. It's just like, oh, like, well, you're a chick. Like, do you even know what a fade is? And, you know, questions like that.
Yeah.
So
Just show 'em-
you just have
show 'em
to,
your-
you just
your
take it a little bit
Instagram.
lightheartedly, you know. Like, I try not to take it as serious, because I think that kind of holds a lot of people back, because they get that one bad review, or that one guy doesn't want to sit in their chair, and then it kind of hurts at first, but you just got to think, like, there's so many people out there, like, it's just on to the
But
next
has
person.
that changed a lot, though, from like 9 years ago when you started barbering? I
To
bet you
now?
got it a lot more, where now, I mean, first of all, barbering in and of itself has been hugely elevated, but I think there's a lot more diversity now.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you know, I'll be
It's-
honest, you know, I can remember, like, oh, he's a white guy, he can't cut a black guy's hair.
Oh,
He's
right.
a black guy,
That-
he can't
that
cut a white
happens
guy's
to a
hair.
lot of guys,
There's
yeah.
still a lot of that going on.
Yeah, and with guys, that happens more in just like gender. It's like, oh,
Right.
if you're not white, then you don't know how to do straight hair.
Right,
But,
right.
you know, that's not usually the case. But, you know, it's kind of similar how people just kind of react to those things differently, just depending on, like, what part of the world you're in.
All right, again, for those of you that are just joining us, this is a great opportunity because Sophie's working her way around to the second side, showing her fading technique. So Sophie, walk us through everything. Tell us what tool you're using and just explain as much detail as you can.
Okay, so this one right now is the Rose Gold FX trimmer, which has not been released yet. This will be coming out soon, hopefully August, but for sure the end of the year. This is what I use to create my guideline, and I'm just making sure I keep this nice transition connected into where I started back here, so I'm just following through all the way here. Now I'm using my Gold FX, and I'm starting with my open and just connecting this middle right here. You know, I've always not really enjoyed cutting on a mannequin, but I have to say this one is actually pretty good.
Yeah, anybody out there who's tried practicing or teaching fades on a mannequin knows how difficult it is.
Yeah.
So Pivot Point developed this new mannequin called Cameron, and you can see how handsome he is. Great bone structure, and then you can see how authentic the hair is. It is 100% human hair that's been treated in a way to create this incredible Afro-ethnic texture. And then the density all the way down to the hairline allows you to really practice fading. And again, if you're asking, any of these Pivot Point tools, from the tripods to the heads to, they've got lots and lots of educational tools are available at the pivotpointshop.com. I recommend you go over there and check it out. And they have monthly sales almost every month if you're looking for different mannequins.
Yeah, there's also a really cool one. I wish I had one with me. It has a beard that
Like a
actually
Samuel?
has a... is it Samuel?
Well, Samuel's got straight.
Samuel's got straight.
He's got a straight
yeah,
beard.
I remember
amazing.
that same one because when we used to cut that,
Bearded Samuel.
It was already nice and curled
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But the ones that they just launched with this one, there's a beard that has more of this type of texture, which is way more realistic.
And you
to,
can
like,
practice
a natural
shaping
beard.
and outlining. and,
Totally. Like that one, you can freehand. You can create really big beards with that one. That one's another really good one as well.
So how much, obviously beards is a whole other thing that's become incredibly popular. How much kind of beard work are you doing behind the chair, and has that become a big part of your business?
It does, yeah. It used to scare me because I think because
you
I don't have a beard,
beard.
I don't really know how to hold a beard and understand the different shapes and, type of styles. But once I started doing them, it actually was a lot of fun. I actually look forward to doing beards. That's probably like one of my more favorite
remember
parts,
that. I
So
remember
yeah,
that.
you grow your beard out and you come see me. It's just nice because you're framing the face, with the beard. So it's kind of fun for me now.
There was a question about how you use the corner. I know you explained it earlier.
Corner
but lots
blending?
Of people, yeah, that corner blending. If you
Okay.
can review that.
Okay, so for example, right now we are on the side. I'm using my 1.5, and I'm just trying to create this shape here, right? So with corner blending, you see this kind of let's just start. Let's start here. So you see there's a little dark spot still because we still have to continue to blend this out. But with corner blending I'm at the 1.5 guard right now. So I'm going to use the same one, and I'm going to go in and just notch that with just the corner. And it's the same effect, like I said earlier, as when someone is doing this and cutting into it and point cutting and lightening it out. You're kind of doing the same thing, but you're doing it with a clipper and a guard. And I'm just going in and lightening
And
that out.
especially works well on this kind of afro texture. You can really free form it.
Exactly. And now you can kind of see it lighten up a little bit. So you can do that all the way up. And just, keep an eye out on your pressure. And now I'm going to freehand the rest of this.
So this is all that thumb action. So is that completely open, the taper adjustment?
All
right
the
now?
way open, yep.
Can you come around, Courtney, and get a shot from the front while Sophie does that? Oh, yeah, because that's just such a cool shot to see her shape it in. There we go. Just working right from the skin right up into that texture. So just locking it in place, holding with both hands, and shaping that angle right in.
So now I'm going to go back and now I'm doing the fine tuning again. And we're going to lighten these shades up right here just a little bit.
So now you're going in and looking between the different lengths to make sure you've got a nice transition.
Yeah. So anytime I see any lines, I'm just going in to kind of fine tune those areas. But when it comes to the length, this is where I use my thinning shears. And I'm going to go in just in this little midsection right here. And I'm going to just lightly lighten those spots out. And this really helps because I'm not really removing a lot of hair. I'm just lightening those shadows up a little bit. And just here alone, you can already tell like that lightened it up a lot without me having to do too much, without having to go into clippers and, accidentally taking that chunk out and then you rounding that little hole out.
It's more about density at this point. Yeah, it's not like that hair needs to be a lot shorter because it's graduated in, so you just need to get some of that thickness out.
And then I just work all the way through.
It's really just on that bottom edge.
So now you look already right here, it's kind of clearing out.
And you said those are some Mizutanis that
These
you're
are
working with.
Mizutani Stellite alloys.
Do you ever use,
trendy teeth.
thinning scissors, like a 40 tooth or something like that?
Yeah, those I use back home as well. Those are really good for just like you're really trying to like remove a lot of weight. That one really helps a lot. This one I use specifically just to lighten dents and any kind of holes that I find in the hair.
Here's a great question from Drea Toledo. Would you say you're changing guards or levels every half inch or inch? What tips do you have for new faders?
That depends on the style. If I'm doing a stretch
Right, a high
blend,
fade, a low
right.
fade.
If I was doing something more stretch where everything is kind of on a larger scale, then for those I take bigger increments. I probably do close to an inch of each section. But then if I was doing a condensed taper or fade, then I take smaller sections and do
total
like
sense.
more like quarter inch.
So if you want, in this, the fade's going relatively high here, so were they more like an inch or?
Yeah, this was more closer to an inch. On a real head, it would have been an inch, yes.
But if you wanted to keep it like lower, like a lower fade, lower contour, they'd be like half inch and you'd have to go through those levels quicker.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm learning
I would
so
be
much.
doing
I'm so
more
lucky.
short strokes, exactly. So it just kind of depends on what kind of style you want to go for.
And now just really detailing that density and texture. Cool. So again, this mannequin is really lending itself to practicing here. We're here for the sixth this is our sixth episode in our series of 6 called Professionals Who Practice, was sponsored by our friends at Pivot Point. The good news is we had such a great response to this that we're going to do more. So let us know what things you'd like to see in this and what educators you'd like to see. In the first series, we covered some razor cutting, some dry scissor cutting. Now we've got some barbering. We did some styling with Ruth Roach. We did some color work with Lupe Voss. What other things would you like to see, and what other professionals would you like to see practicing in this series? So it's a special series. It's dedicated to hairdressers and educators that continue to practice. And I'm sure, I was just saying earlier, since we started this series and 50 mannequins showed up at my house, I was like a kid on Christmas, and I practiced like crazy, and I've gotten really re-inspired. Not that I ever lost my inspiration, but I've doubled down on it. Who else would you like to see? Let us know. And what other topics would you like to see in this next series of Professionals Who Practice? You can keep going. Lots of love coming in. People know that, wow, to be able to get it to look this good on a mannequin is incredible. Brill.
Yeah, this is the first time I've done a fade on the Cameron too.
Really?
Yeah, I've never gone, this is my first time cutting him and going this close.
Well, you went for it. You nailed it.
Thank you.
And, you know, the thing with the fades is that just that last, like, couple of moments is like seals the deal, doesn't it? Like, I can remember being terrified when I first saw people putting in the lines. Because again, I was trained for 25 years to never do something like that.
Right.
And then when you see the lines start coming out, I remember like working with John Mosley, Popular Nobody, and I was like, man, you scared the hell out of me on stage when I saw those lines in there. And then I turned around and it was like melted out. And that's, again, thank you for showing us that.
Oh yeah, look at, like, it's just a really good mannequin to practice on. It's crazy.
Awesome.
Looks
And
so realistic.
that's what we're here for. That's what it's all about, to show practice makes perfect. And, you know, no matter how experienced you are, no matter how many followers you have, no matter where you are in your journey, you always need to keep practicing. Again, lots of questions about the clippers. They're the new Babyliss clippers, a kind of special edition of the gold and the rose gold, the FX. Those will be out on the market soon. And Sophie, you work with those guys, you work with Pivot Point. What else is going on in your career these days?
I'm also working with Mizutani and Takara Belmont as well.
Cool. So you got it all covered. Scissors, furniture, clippers, education.
Yeah.
And what will you be doing here at the ABS Beauty Show over the next day?
We have a really cool workshop tomorrow. I'll be here with Pivot Point. We have a class tomorrow that is still open. I think we have a couple more slots left. We'll be doing a
So if
hands-on-
anybody's in Chicago for ABS and they want to work hands-on
tomorrow,
with Sophie?
yeah, tomorrow you can walk in and take the class. It's from 9 to 12, room 105 BC.
And I'm actually right next door in room
Yeah,
104.
we're right- we're
I'm sold
neighbors.
out tomorrow, but on Monday I still have a few spots available for my cutting class if you want to do some innovative cutting with me. But I highly recommend you come tomorrow and do some clipper work here with Sophie.
Yeah, so we have a 3-hour haircutting class. That would be pretty cool. We're going to cover a lot of theory. We're going to cover just different tools, how to go about before and after, where to start your guides. We're going to talk about different textures and stuff like that. So if you want to come through, it's between 9 and 12 tomorrow.
Awesome. How do you feel, Sophie? You got
Yeah, we're
everything
good.
in there? Cameron, how do you feel? I feel great. Look at how cool I am. Come on over here. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
sharing
much.
your
Thank you,
talent with
Hairbrained.
us.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone, for all your great questions and your love. And peace out from Chicago. We'll see you very, very soon on your phone screen somewhere.
Yes.
Love
Thank
you
you
guys.
so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in. Bye.